Hi, and welcome to another edition of We Review Races with Billy and Sam. This is the car we're on the way back to Philadelphia edition. And so you are getting the freshest take on this because we are still in our race suits. So we have just completed Ironman 70.3 Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. I think we're going to jump right into it with, we're going to go ahead and tell race stories along with our review of the race. So, check in.
So before we go any further, it was brutal. If you don't want to do a brutal race, you can go ahead and stop now. Because this one was brutal.
Tough race.
Check-in was standard Ironman check-in. It was interesting, they filled the numbers from highest to lowest on this one. So we got numbers 239 and 241, which are, actually on the same side of the rack together. And we were like, oh, wow, man, not many people have checked in until we went out there to do our bikes, and we were like, oh, they started with like 1,100 or something and went down. So it was dynamic numbering. If you wanted to race with somebody, then you could. You could just go up to the more adjacent numbers, or for us, we got the two odd numbers on that side of the rack.
So pro tip, we learned this at the last race. Instead of asking for adjacent numbers like 240 and 241, if you ask for like 239 and 241, then you are beside each other on the same side of the rack. Whereas if your numbers are directly adjacent, then one is facing one way and one is facing the other. So that was a good learn.
I mean, there is a bike in between you, but that person sets up their stuff on the other side. So, anything else we check in? Oh, we got a backpack and a T-shirt at check-in. T-shirt and backpack.
T-shirt and backpack at check-in, and we have done a great job of taking it out of the bag. So you guys are gonna. This is the same style bag we got for for Des Moines. With the triangles on the side, and it's just one big giant pocket. So that's what's going on with Ironman this year. And this is the same style T-shirt that we've seen before, with the sponsors on the back. They do not put Ironman on the back. There are sponsors on the sleeve. There are sponsors on this sleeve. There, I'm pretty sure, are sponsors inside of this somewhere. Triangles on the bottom. It's kind of a neat design. This is a drastic departure from T-shirts of the past. So just something interesting. They look well designed. We'll have to test them and find out. Anything else? The swag this year has been like some kind of fuel, and this year we got peanut butter,
peanut butter powder. That's what it was.
Peanut butter. So
I actually saved that. Maybe I'll figure out a recipe or something to use it for, but the other stuff I just threw away.
So this is a 2 transition race. So you, in your packet, along with your bags, you're going to get different bags for T1 and T2. There is no T2 access on race day, prior to race day. So when you get there in the morning, you cannot touch your T2 bag or your T2 bag, which is a departure from every other race we've ever done with 2 bags. They never cared. And
this is the run bag, so you're putting all of your run gear in this, and it's at the same location as the finish line and the same location as check-in and all that. T1 is the one that's way out in the middle of nowhere near the swim.
So T1, on the way there, it took us 28 minutes to get to. So T1 is a good ways away from check-in. So just plan your time around that. You got any other check-in stuff for us?
No. So we were when we got the transition spots, we were like, oh, you really wanted to have a high number, because the high number at T2, where your run is closest to the exit, so you don't walk with your bike. I mean, the bike in, so you don't walk with your bike a whole bunch. But no big deal. They had reversed that at T1, so there really was no advantage.
Yeah, I really like that, because we've had it before where you're at the back on one and you're at the back on the other. So The people who checked in early got a big advantage, but I really like the Ironman. Made it fair, and did it in the reverse order, so that right wherever you were, it was the opposite for the other. That was a good change.
Yeah, that was. You did need to drop off your bike at T1 the day before the race. You did have access to your bike the morning of, but the bike itself had to be dropped off. So be prepared to either have a rental car or I don't even think there's an airport in Happy Valley. So if you're going, you have a car.
You're going to need a car. So race morning.
Yeah, I can't think of anything unusual other tthan you went and parked at the finish line and then hopped on a bus.
You could park at either, to be fair.
So if you have spectators, but were they going to take? There was not a shuttle bus after the race.
We did not see a shuttle bus post race back to T1. So
you're going to want to, if you're by yourself. Your family can take you to T1 if they want to, but if you're by yourself. Then you're going to want to park at T2 because that's where you'll end up, is at the finish line there.
So the swim is a triangle, so it's a out, across, and back in. There were 7 buoys for each color, so 5 buoys, and then the big turn triangle, 2 buoys, and then 2 buoys of the orange on the way back, and 5 buoys in. We had a fairly overcast morning, and so on my way back in, I got a little bit of sun, but for the rest of it, it was fine.
If you're a good swimmer, you're going to want to go first because you get in. For Ironman, it was actually a relatively small race, but the sun comes up over the trees, and so the earlier you get in, the less likely you're going to be able to see the sun. It was overcast for us. It wasn't really that big of a deal, and I didn't notice any big advantage.
It had poured the day before, so Saturday. This time it was a Sunday race. It poured on Saturday. The lake got to 70.
It started at 79.1, I think, and got to like 77.1, but not wetsuit legal.
Was not wetsuit legal. So we were not was not wetsuit legal, was wetsuit optional. Don't forget, you can wear your wetsuit, but it will not count. You cannot get roll down, and you can't get awards.
Age group awards.
And they held the wetsuit people back for 2 minutes. So everybody without a wetsuit swam. 2 minutes later, the wetsuit people got in. There is a test swim area that you can get in, so you can feel the water. It is kind of a pain in the butt to get to. So you
just the way they have it, it's right next to where you get in for the swim, but it was the way they had the barricades. You had to go way out of your way to be able to get to it.
So, and then you had to come back in through the transition entrance. So it took some time. If you're going to do that, allow yourself time for that. Getting in the water, when we were in the test area, it was all sandy, no problems. When we got in the water this time, there were rocks in the water, small stones that were kind of painful on my feet. So there were rocks at the swim entrance and exit that were a surprise because we had walked on nice soft sand at the practice area. So I was marching in and started ow 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 ow. If you're prepared for them, they're not that bad. It was just startling.
But it does make you want to swim out as soon as you can and swim in as far as you possibly can prior to standing up.
So, this wasn't my fastest swim. Obviously, there's not a wetsuit. But I felt like there was a lot of traffic. There were a lot of people that I was bumping into, which could be me. So,
we did start at probably a slower area. I mean, I guess that goes to stories. Do you have any stories on the swim?
So I started out with, I'm pretty sure this was not going to be a great day. My goggles I put under my swim cap, just in case anybody kicks them, and I got slapped in the face.
Oh, goodness.
Some girl's backstroke. That was a little bit shocking. But I put my goggles under my swim cap, and then they slid forward on my hair, so the tightness of the goggles was in question. After about the first 500 yards, I had to keep adjusting them, and they're under the swim caps. There's really nothing you could do on the strap. So I was like, man, this is going to be a tough day. So we didn't start out great. But
sorry, man. That was me. I mean, I wanted to start towards the back because I knew my swim was going to be slow. And Sam, I mean, I guess that was my fault. Sam wanted to start with me, so
I say it was my fault because I didn't start where I should have. So I was trying to start behind Billy this time, because last time he started behind me and I didn't know where he was. I wasn't going to let him catch me, but this time I wanted to start with him so that at least I knew when he passed me exactly how far behind him I was going to be.
So my swim stories are: I start out and I'm gonna call him breaststroke guy because he would swim, I don't know, 6 or 8 breaths and then breaststroke while he sighted, and then 6 or 8 breaths and then breaststroke while he sighted. And I would have liked to have drafted off of him because he was swimming relatively a good. But the problem was if I'm drafting off him and then he starts breaststroking and I'm basically going to run into him. So I'm like, all right. So then I try to go, left or right of him, and I'll get past him while he's breaststroking, and then he'll start swimming and he gets in front of me. It was this whole thing. I thought this was going to be a good swim for me. I count my breaths, and the first 500 yards I did relatively fast compared to when we did a non-wetsuit race in Alabama a few weeks ago. And so it was 100. I think it was 195 breaths, I think. And my first, it was like 220 or something like that in Alabama. And I'm like, oh, okay, well maybe I'm going to do all right. Well, the next 500 yards was 220 breaths. The next was 225. The next was 230. So it just kept getting worse. I don't know if there was a current on that first 500 yards. I don't know what it was where I only did 195. But, I mean, my swim time was better than Alabama, but it was not good. I think I did Alabama in like 58 or 59, and I think I did this one in like 56. So, I mean, non-wetsuit. I'm not in shape. Really. I mean, it is improvement, but I'm not in shape, so we'll get to more of that later.
So the bike came in from the swim. Your bike is what it is for the transition. Go out on the bike. The roads are actually north of the snow line. I'm going to call it north of the snowplow line, right? Anywhere in America that you have roads need to be plowed, typically they're terrible. For north of the snowplow lines, this is the best roads we've ever seen.
And I mean, they're excellent roads. We would call them excellent roads, even if they were Tennessee or Georgia or whatever.
Really good roads.
There were no sections that I thought, oh, we shouldn't be riding here.
So we are north of the snowplow line, and we are riding through Amish country. And so I had prepared myself for a day of hard and bumpy riding, and it was not that at all. They had done a very nice job. Kudos to Ironman for cleaning. There was, horse poop that you had to dodge.
There was a lot of horse poop you had to dodge.
And one place where cows crossed the road, there was a little bit of mud. But other than that, they had done a great job of maintaining the roads, taking care of the roads. You went out, and you came out of T1, and there was an immediate turnaround. They had added a little piece to get some going, and I was already upset, but they actually, either they paved extra or they just found a spot that they had extra turnaround. So the turnaround was almost like cul-de-sac, like 90-foot size. I mean, you had to slow down for it, but it's not like doing a U-turn on a 2-lane road. So I was not taking any points away.
And it was flat. You will enjoy that.
Yeah. So the first, I'm going to say at 10 miles are really, really good as far as the bike is concerned. The next 10 miles are a little hilly. And then after that is not great. So you look on the Facebook group and look on certainly on the Ironman website, you'll see the course profile, and you will see between mile 27 and 28 there is a nasty hill, and that I'm fairly confident is the steepest hill we have ever biked up. It's not terribly long, but it is very steep, and so it was a very difficult piece early on. It's mile 27, so we're halfway on. The first aid station was at mile 13.
13 and a half. And
so
this is important because the second aid station is 18 miles later.
Yes.
So there's a big difference. So it was a little bit early, and the next one was a little bit late. And that's that. So there's a significant time between those two. I mean, we're 18 miles, and we're typically looking for them every 14 miles. So it's not that much further, but still, it is if you're looking for it.
But then you have at mile 38 to mile 41 is a long slog of a climb. I am going to put this in, I mean, it's really close to Blue Ridge level climb. It was not as bad as Blue Ridge. So I feel like you need to take everything that we're saying with a grain of salt, because neither one of us is in prime condition.
Peak athletic condition.
Yeah.
Neither one of us.
Maybe not even good athletic condition. What we learned from doing everything was a lot of Ironman is physical, is mental, and so once you've gotten just enough physically, then all you got to do is mentally push. That was a brutal course. So they say that it's all downhill on the way down. So you hit the top of the hill, and then on the downhill side of this thing, there is a speed limit, and they said if you go over 25 miles an hour, that you will be disqualified. And so I'm hitting both brakes. They actually had a radar gun on the thing with the 25 mile an hour speed limit, which was kind of neat.
Yeah, it told you what your speed was.
And so I have got both brakes. I mean, I'm not locking them down, but it's pretty close. They were squeaking away. And I'm going 23, so I'm constantly watching. I don't have a computer on my bike. I have my watch. I'm looking at my watch to make sure that I'm doing that right. It was a very steep hill. I think 25 was a little bit more aggressive than they needed to be on that speed, probably 30. But they did absolutely need to limit the speed. If there were some turns that if you were going too fast, you were eating it. So they have a very good reason for doing it, but all the fun of going in the downhill that you just put all that work in the uphill gets sucked out because you've got to ride your brakes the whole way down the course. So they will warn you that that's coming, so you're well aware.
There is the reason they know that you're doing more than 25 is because they have timing. They have timing before at the beginning and timing at the end. And if your time during in those two intervals is more than 25 miles an hour average, then you're out.
And they absolutely have those timing mats. I looked at both of them because I was curious if that was just a hollow thread or not, and I don't know if they disqualified anybody. I was trying not to get disqualified, so it's possible that there's some leniency in there, but assume not. But it doesn't matter because your legs are shot after that hill. Today was very windy, and it was in our face. I swear it was in our face the entire time, but it was absolutely in our face going up both of those hills.
Mile 20 is where it started, and somebody told us that. Somebody told us, hey, when you make the turn at mile 20, wind's going to be in your face.
Oh, man. So this is apparently a known problem. So the back side of that, they call rollers. I think that's still a little bit more generous than it should be. There's still hills. A roller, I feel like I should get up 80-90% of the down. I should be able to get 80-90% of the way up the next hill before really having to engage the pedals. And I was making it maybe half. We both logged terrible times on the bike. And this is coming from doing Des Moines 2 weeks ago. You can watch that review. It had hills, not like this. And our time this time was an hour longer. And so while we may not be in shape, there's a big difference between here and Des Moines. I'm certainly going to put this in the top 3 hardest bikes in the United States. So I go ahead and raise story. So you end on a climb up to transition to T2. So even when you think you're done with hills, you're not. So there was a fairly steep hill, and then it kind of levels off and has a little up and down, and then the last part of it is a hill into transition. So it's really nice to give you that extra little shove there at the end. So my bike stories, there was not great talking. There was not a lot of conversation.
Everybody was hurt
on the bike. So yeah, I think everybody's in the pain cave and just suffering. But on the long hill, I needed to get some water, so there was some nutrition. So my nutrition, I run inside of my bottles. So I use liquid nutrition. And I go for my bottle, and I'm in a beat, so I drop it. It's my nutrition, so I got to stop and get it. So I stop, and we're on a fairly, still on the incline, but the flattest part anyway. That I'd seen for a little while. But so I drop my bottle, I pull over, drop, I stop, I grab the bike, grab my bottle, and I'm walking back, and a guy's climbing and goes, "Man, living off the land, like it." Assuming that I was grabbing somebody else's bottle, which, I'm not a germaphobe, but that's disgusting. I don't even have a concept of how gross that was. But funny. And apparently there's a new term. You got living off the land for grabbing somebody else's bottle that's on the ground. So I get the bottle in, and I have to walk the bike up to where I can perceive it's flat enough to be able to start biking again. And I start walking, and I look behind, and there's Billy off of his bike. I was like, come on, man. I know he's trying to be nice and just, let me win, but at least try to make it.
No, man, I was coming up that hill. So see, the thing about it is you kind of get to some areas where it levels off, and then you go around a curve, and then there's another hill, and so psychologically I got in my head. There are people walking. There are people walking their bikes, and even from that very first steep incline, people were walking their bikes there. And not everybody, but I don't know.
We started at the back of the swim and haven't done great to this point. So we're at the back of the race where the walkers would show up.
10%, 20% of the people, maybe between 10 and 20% of the people I saw would be walking their bike. And in Blue Ridge, we saw somebody walking there. We saw people walking their bike, and I mean, I kind of got in my head. I was like, that's probably a pretty good idea because, I mean, if you blow out your legs, then you're done, right? So, but if you walk your bike, so anyway, I'm coming up behind Sam, and I see him walking his bike, and that's a good idea. Let's do that. And I almost busted getting off my bike because my legs are so shot coming up those hills. And anyway, so I'm able to get it off, and I walk. And that was not the only place I walked. I walked on that University Drive hill too. I walked my bike so much that my ankles are bloody from getting blisters, and then the blisters popping, and then rubbing again. And so it was a tough day.
So we
again, we're not in shape. This is the key here. I'm sure if you're doing this race, if you're watching this video, it's because you're doing everything you can.
You're prepping
and prepping. And
so I rode next to a lady from Dallas for a little bit, and she said she's from Dallas. She's got about the same hills that I have in Jacksonville, which is none. And so she had used the Wahoo trainer to prep, and she's like, it's not enough.
It's not the same.
No. So that was good to know. Apparently, set the Wahoo trainer on a little bit harder than the actual course. But we get to the University Drive, and this is a fairly steep hill before University. And I just can't help it. I scream. Wait, it's another. I mean, it's a fairly steep hill. I hate Pennsylvania. And one of the crowd members or whatever goes, "You're welcome back anytime. Nice to have you." So it wasn't, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 strokes later, and my legs locked up. And I was like, dude, I got to get out of this bike right now, or I'm just going to fall over. So there was a volunteer there. I get off my bike, and I'm just standing there, and I've got electricity running through my legs. I can't move them. The volunteer was super nice. What can I help you do? What do you need? And so he held my bike while it was a straight leg to get my leg off of the bike. So then he lays the bike down while I'm still standing there because I can't move. So finally he holds me so that I can get to the grass and lay down. So what do you need? Water? Gatorade? I was like, man, if you got water. He gives me a nice cold bottle of water. It was amazing. Then I had a salt tab, so I take that and stay there for a few minutes, and then finally legs start going again. We bring 3 bottles worth of nutrition on the bike. This was more than a 4-hour bike for both of us, mostly because Billy was being generous, but for both of us, and I ran out of nutrition. And so be aware of that. Make sure that you've got extra salt. It is going to be hot. It's going to be hot and windy, so extra salt, extra nutrition. I grabbed some stuff from the last aid station, but clearly it wasn't enough. And so, take all that what you will. You got any stories about the bike?
So, a couple of things. I have some stories, but the first thing to be aware of is the first 20 miles, you're going to think that, this bike isn't so hard. For me, the climb started at mile 27, or the climbs started at mile 27. The first 27 miles I did in 1 hour, 30 minutes. Wow. The next 29 miles I did in 2 hours and 40 minutes. So that's how much of a difference there is between the two. It's pretty brutal. So don't think that just because you're doing really well. I mean, the wind must have been in our back for the first 5 miles because I was 13 something on that. On that, and I'm like, I'm good. I don't no problem for me. Yeah, it was a problem. All right, so stories. Not too many stories because I do count people, and I was like, how many people can I pass in this? And so I was like, I was kind of aggressive in Des Moines. Let's just do 100. Can I get 100 people? Well, I passed 30 people in the first 10 miles. So I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe this isn't going to be so hard anyway. Anyway, when I started walking my bike, I had passed 118 people when I started walking my bike. Now I didn't feel like that I was allowed to count people after that. So I didn't count anybody after that. But I'm riding. This is in the first 20 miles. I don't remember exactly where it was, but I'm gonna call him no hands guy. I'm riding along, and somebody starts to get their nutrition out, whether it's solids or liquids. I don't know what he was getting, but he was up on his bike with no hands on anything. And I don't group ride very much, but I know there are rules for group riding. I don't know all of the rules for group riding, but I know that you never go no hands during a group ride, ever. I heard him complaining after the race that he got a flat tire and had a whole bunch of trouble or whatever, and I was like, karma.
So you heard that. There was a fair number of flat tires. I don't know.
Oh, I counted all those people.
Yeah, I mean, as well you should. I don't know what the reasoning was on it. I didn't see anything on the course that led me to believe there should be lots of flat tires. But be aware, make sure your tires and tubes are in good shape.
There were a bunch of people that stopped at the second aid station. There was a line for the porta potties at the second aid station. Yeah, I counted all those people.
How many people was that? Was that like 20 of your people?
No, there's like 10.
Okay.
But, I mean, there were only two porta potties. So
they said, on a side note, they had more than 1,000 volunteers for this race.
Oh, wow.
It was absolutely very well volunteered. They were everywhere. So kudos to Ironman for getting that much support.
Or to State College for having enough people that were interested in doing it. I mean, I don't know if there was anything else. Oh, the other story on the bike was all the Amish people.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that.
So you're riding through Amish country, and apparently the most entertaining thing to do today was watch all the bikers ride by their houses. So this is, they would be on the, beside the street, but on the street, set up in chairs, and it was, family groups, large family groups of people. And so that was a lot of fun to see. There were horse and buggies, especially early in the morning when they were going to church. So I got several chuckles out of the "can I borrow your horse?" That counts as riding in my mind. Yeah, I'm still riding. But yeah, they were super excited and very, very friendly. I gave them a lot of hang looses that were not returned, so I don't know. I might be raising some Amish questions later.
There were a ton of children out there, and I waved to all of them. They were cheering, waving back. It was a really
that made
really
it
fun.
lots of fun. This race had a ton of community support. Every step of the way, there were a lot of people out, which is impressive for 70 miles.
Yeah. 56. Well, the bike. Well, you're talking about the whole 70.
The whole race, but so you end at the Beaver Stadium parking lot for T2. You wanna go over our run?
The run is hilly. I mean, they call it hilly. I mean, remember we told you that this was a brutal race in the very beginning. So if you're still here, then I guess you don't mind doing a brutal race. But it was hilly. My legs were done. So I got to get my money's worth of time today. Yeah. Yes. I took the maximum amount of time that I could possibly take and still finish.
You had 3 minutes, really. I don't know.
2 minutes and change. 8:27 and some change or something was what I ended up finishing in. But the run, so it's a 2-loop run. There are several out and backs. A couple of out and backs. But you do them twice, so it ends up being several. So you kind of, I actually like those on the run, and I mean the way they did them was fine. Because the reason I like them on the run is because I can see where Sam is, or you can see where I am, or you can see where your competition is, how far ahead or behind, or whatever. The aid stations were incredible. Depending on how you count them, there were either 13 aid stations or 15 aid stations. One aid station you hit twice, and you hit it twice. Well, you hit it four times, but you hit it twice within a quarter of a mile of each other. So you hit it, you go do a U-turn, and then you come back and you hit it again. So depends on if you count that or not. But that was, either 13 or 15. That was a lot of aid stations. There was even an aid station a half a mile from the finish.
Yeah.
So it was they knew it was going to be a tough race. And so had ice, didn't have Gatorade at every aid station. They did have the Martin
mango
something.
I made the mistake of grabbing it one time.
I'm
not a mango person.
I did not do that. But had the regular stuff that you would expect for Ironman: the bananas, pretzels, water, gels, which they're the Martin gels, which they've given those out at all the races anyway. Coke and ice, and plenty of ice. They had ice. They even had ice when we were finishing, which is the end of the race.
So, I'm going to dispute that they did not have ice. They ran out of ice for mile 10 or 11, and it did not have any for the rest of the aid stations. But yes, some of the aid stations just had ice out in pools.
Yeah, I didn't like that because you had to bend over to get it, and I didn't want to bend over.
There's that. And some of the ice was already in cups, and it was just aid station dependent. So I'm actually fairly favorable with that because the ice in the pools, I could dip my hat in. I like to put ice in the top of my hat, and let that melt down. So it allowed me to get the hat and to get the correct amount of ice instead of having 2 or 3 cups or whatever. But that was fairly on, and I don't like that it's not potable. Let's be honest, when it's a giant pool that people are putting sweaty hats into or fingers. But there were other aid stations with ice. But coming out of T2, coming out of transition, there was not ice. They had water, but no ice for that until you got to that first mile. That's only important because I bring my own water bottle, and so because I couldn't store it overnight because you've got to leave it the day before. I didn't go out with water in the bottle. I had my nutrition in there, but not water. So it took me a couple of aid stations to get that thing filled up, but it worked out fine. So plenty of water, plenty of aid stations, and then you see the 2-loop run, and then you finish the race on Penn State's field, which is called
inside the stadium,
inside of Beaver Stadium, which is turf, and that's always hot to me, but separate issue. So they say it's on the 50, and it is on the 50-yard line where the finish line is, but you run on the outside of the field, so it's not like you're running straight at it. So even after you hit the turnaround and you're going straight, it's maybe half a mile total? Certainly you'll know by your watch, but it is still a good distance, and you're able to pass several people there, so it's a really good spot to pick up some spots.
You talking about the split? I don't even think it from the aid station, or are you talking about from the split?
No, from the split, right? You go down.
Yeah, I don't think it's a half a mile, but it is probably more than a quarter of a mile. It's enough to where when you hit the split, you're not done.
Yeah.
And don't think that you're done.
Yeah.
And even when you get inside the stadium, you're not done.
You're still not done.
But you're very close. But I thought that I was just going to run inside the stadium and just run out to the 50, like it was just kind of straight out there, but it was not. You had to go through the end zone and then go to the 50. So by the time you enter the stadium, you have to go another 75 yards or so. So
you got any running stories for us?
Nah, I was hurting. So I didn't really talk to very many people. The people who I did talk to generally annoyed me because I was hurting. I mean, I knew my legs were done after the bike, and I knew what I needed to do to be able to finish in 8.5 hours. And so that's what I did. You got any good run stories?
I ran with a girl from Mexico who was wanting a spot for the World Championships. So this year, June 30th. It is the last chance to qualify for the World Championships in New Zealand, and so she was on her second loop and I was on my first, but she was a lot of fun. So I'm hoping that she got a spot. I never saw her but she had enough time to get a shower and change clothes, so I'm still in the same.
I mean, she would have gotten a spot if she really wanted one, because
yes.
every lady got a spot.
Everybody got one. So
every lady got a spot.
Every lady, every female. So feel like this is worth talking about. Women for Tri. So Ironman, I'm going to say, does not sell out the women's World Championship. So what they have done is add extra spots under the Women for Tri nomiker, so that if anybody else wants to go, that they can get enough. So lots of races, they were having roll downs where they did not allocate all of the spots, so those spots are then allocated to Women for Tri for other races. So if you race as a woman towards the end of the year, you're pretty well guaranteed to be able to go. Yeah,
I mean, the Des Moines, everybody got to go. The announcer said that in Mont Tremblant, everybody got to go. So, yeah, it was, I mean, the ladies, all the ladies got to go.
Guys did not have that same, for 40 to 44, my age group, the spots went in the top 10. So all 4 original allocated spots went inside of the top 10. And so, we put this race on the calendar hoping that as an end of the year race that it would fall down pretty far. Be careful, some age groups it went all the way and spots are reallocated because they were not taken. And then Billy's age group, I think, went to the 23rd place. And so it was highly age group dependent on who got spots and who didn't.
So finish line, show them the medal.
So yeah, you got the medal, and I actually argued with the medal guy that the state of Pennsylvania did not look like this. It does. I am wrong. I'm offering an apology to the medal guy. Apparently it's a spork. So a nice medal. I like they tied everything together with the triangles and the whatnot. The hats this year have is a nice Penn State blue, but they've done the mesh sides, and it's a nice mesh. It's not like a trucker mesh. So they're fantastic. The hats are excellent for running. I don't love the style for just wearing a hat around, but they are amazing run hats, which is kind of what you need anyway.
Yeah.
So, any other finishing stories?
No, I mean, I cramped up. I mean, I'm still hurt. I'm wiping salt off of my eyes because it's kind of starting to burn. I mean, it's a brutal race. But we knew it was a brutal race, and we actually kind of signed up for this, knowing that it was a brutal race. So,
So we are currently trying to do races in all 50 states. I don't believe that this race is going to make it very long. So a typical contract for Ironman is 3 years, but if they have less than 1,100 racers, they will cancel. I mean, they'll do their 3-year contract, but they will not renew the contract. So it's really close, and I'm sure they did not win any supporters.
Supposedly this year was harder than last year, and last year was considered to be hard also. I bet they had more people last year than they did this year, and I bet they'll have less people next year. And so if you want to do this race, you better sign up for
say go ahead and get in on it.
2025.
We need to. So you want to rank the swim?
Just lake swim. I mean, let's just rank the whole race.
Okay.
The bike, it was a brutal bike, but I really enjoyed the roads. They did a great job of cleaning off the roads. The run was hilly. I mean, it was billed as hilly, and it didn't seem like they made you run up a big hill on purpose. It was just all through campus.
Wound around campus.
And so, I mean, I kind of get that campus is hilly, and so if you're gonna run through campus, you got to run through the hilly. The lake, I mean, it was a fine swim. Maybe if there's 2,000 people in the race, it's not going to be a fine swim, but I think they do 3 people every 3 seconds.
Four people every 5 seconds.
Okay, whatever it was, maybe it spreads everybody out. It was well run. I mean, we expect that out of Ironman, but it was well run. The course, I believe, was well designed. It was a tough race, but I'm gonna give it a solid 6. What are we out of 7 bananas?
7 bananas. We have a 7 banana potential score.
So I'm gonna give it a solid 6. It's not a race that I will ever do again because I don't want to. But as far as the race itself, implementation, the number of volunteers, the organization, 6.
I have a slightly different opinion.
Okay.
I'm going to say he's exactly right. It's a very well put on race, and I wouldn't. Ironman deserves to be complimented where compliments are due. Certainly recognize they put on a fantastic race here. I feel like that bike course is unnecessarily hard. That feels like a world championship level bike course. Like I said, this is it. I don't put it as hard as I don't put the climbs in it as hard as Blue Ridge, but it's close as far as the overall feeling of the bike and the difficulty of the bike. I'm going to rank this as a difficult course. So if you are looking to push yourself to see where your strengths and weaknesses are, it's certainly going to show that. I think it was unnecessarily difficult for what they did with it. So I'm going to give it a 4 banana score, even considering that it was a difficult race. So we were signing up for a difficult race. And
we're getting
slowly getting a little darker here. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, this is a 4 banana race max. I'm definitely never going to do it again. I don't care if somebody called me and said, I really want to do this, I'll pay for you, it's free. It's still a no. So I can't give it a high score on that. I don't mind difficult races. It drives me nuts when they make it hard just for the sake of being hard. But certainly different things for different people, and people who are climbers would very much enjoy this race. So I think that's about all we got.
That's all we got.
If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. This is the end of our official season. So stay tuned for next year when we pick 3 more states and do it all again.
See ya.